Okay, today we're reading out of As Bill Sees It, the references to growth individual. We start out on page 1. Personality change. It has also often been said of AA that we are interested only in alcoholism. That is not true. We have to get over drinking in order to stay alive. But anyone who knows the alcoholic personally, by first-hand contact, knows that no true alkie ever stops drinking permanently without undergoing a profound personality change. We thought conditions drove us to drink, and when we tried to correct these conditions and found that we couldn't do so to our entire satisfaction, our drinking went out of hand and we became alcoholics. It never occurred to us that we needed to change ourselves to meet conditions, whatever they were. Okay, our next reference is on page 8. A New Life.
New life. In sobriety, all that we are to expect of a spiritual is sobriety all that we are to expect of a spiritual awakening? No. Sobriety is only a bare beginning. It is only the first gift of the first awakening. If more gifts are to be received, our awakening has to go on. As it does go on, we find that bit by bit, we can discard the old life, the one that did not work, for a new life that can and does work under any conditions, whatever. Regardless of worldly success or failure, regardless of pain or joy, regardless of sickness or health, or even of death itself, a new life of endless possibilities can be lived if we're willing to continue our awakening through the practice of AA's 12 steps.
Okay. Our next reference is on 10. Out of the dark. Self-searching is the means by which we bring new vision, action, and grace to bear upon the dark and negative side of our natures. With it comes the development of that kind of humility that makes it possible for us to receive God's help. Yet this is only a step. We will want to go further. We will want the good that is in us all, even in the worst of us, to flower and to grow. But first of all, we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can glow in the dark, can grow, nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our step out into the sun. A clear light seems to fall upon us when we open our eyes. Since our blindness is caused by our own defects, we must first deeply realize what they are. Constructive meditation is the first requirement for each new step in our spiritual growth. Okay, 12.
Seeking Fool's Gold, page 12. Pride is the basic breeder of most human difficulties, the chief block to true progress. Pride lures us into making demands upon ourselves or upon others which cannot be met without perverting or misusing our God-given instincts. When the satisfaction of our instincts for sex, security, and a place in society becomes the primary object of our lives, then pride steps in to justify our excesses. I may attain humility for today only to the extent that I'm able to avoid the bog of guilt and rebellion on one hand, and on the other hand, that fair but deceiving land which is strewn with the fool's gold coins of pride. This is how I can find and stay on the high road to humility, which lies between these extremes. Therefore, a constant inventory, which can reveal when I am off the road, is always in order.
Okay. 25. We cannot stand still. In the first days of AA, I wasn't much bothered about the areas of life in which I was standing still. There was always the alibi, after all. I said to myself, I'm far too busy with much more important matters. That was my near perfect prescription for comfort and complacency. How many of us would presume to declare, well, I'm sober and I'm happy. What more can I want or do? I'm fine the way I am. We know that the price of such self-satisfaction is an inevitable backslide, punctuated at some point by a very rude awakening. We have to grow or else deteriorate. For us, the status quo can only be for today, never for tomorrow. Change we must. We cannot stand still. 44.
34?
44.
44.
Daily acceptance.
These pages are stuck together.
Yes.
They are.
Too
Can't
much
get
of
them
my
apart.
life has been spent.
Page 44, daily acceptance. Too much of my life has been spent in dwelling upon the faults of others. This is a most subtle and perverse form of self-satisfaction, which permits us to remain comfortably unaware of our own defects. Too often we are heard to say, if it weren't for him or her, how happy I'd be. Our very first problem is to accept our present circumstances as they are, ourselves as we are, and the people about us as they are. This is to adopt a realistic humility without which no genuine advance can even begin. Again and again, we shall need to return to that unflattering point of departure. This is an exercise in acceptance that we can profitably practice every day of our lives. Provided we strenuously avoid turning these realistic surveys of the facts of life into unrealistic alibis for apathy or defeatism, they can be the sure foundation upon which increased emotional health and therefore spiritual progress can be built.
Okay, 6.5. Growth by the 10th step. In the years ahead, AA will, of course, make mistakes. Experience has taught us that we need have no fear of doing this, providing that we always remain willing to admit our faults and to correct them promptly. Our growth as individuals has depended upon this healthy process of trial and error. So will our growth as a fellowship. Let us always remember that any society of men and women that cannot freely correct its own faults must surely fall into decay, if not into collapse. Such is the universal penalty for the failure to go on growing. Just as each AA must continue to take his moral inventory and act upon it, so must our whole society if we are to survive and if we are to serve usefully and well. Okay, 7.6.
Only God is unchanging. Page 76. Change is the characteristic of all growth, from drinking to sobriety, from dishonesty to honesty, from conflict to serenity, from hate to love, from childish dependence to adult responsibility. All this and infinitely more represent change for the better. Such changes are accomplished by a brief in and a practice of sound principles. Here we must needs discard bad or ineffective principles in favor of good ones that work. Even good principles can sometimes be displaced by discovery of still better ones. Only God is unchanging. Only He has all the truth there is.
Okay. 8.5. Life is not a dead end. When a man or woman has a spiritual awakening, the most important meaning of it is that he has now become able to do, feel, and believe that which he could not do before on his unaided strength and resources alone. He has granted a gift which amounts to a new state of consciousness and being. He has been set on a path which tells him he is really going somewhere, that life is not a dead end, not something to be endured or mastered. In a very real sense, he has been transformed because he has laid hold of a source of strength which he hitherto denied himself. 101.
Page 101, the spiritual angle. How often do we sit in AA meetings and hear the speaker declare, "But I haven't yet got the spiritual angle"? Prior to the statement, he has described a miracle of transformation which has occurred to him, not only his release from alcohol, but a complete change in his whole attitude toward life and the living of it. It is apparent to everyone else present that he has received a great gift, and that this gift is all out of proportion to anything that may be expected from a simple AA participation. So we in the audience smile and say to ourselves, well, that guy is just reeking with the spiritual angle, except that he doesn't seem to know it yet.
Okay, 104. Our new employer. We had a new employer, being all-powerful. He provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. We felt new power flow in as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence. We began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or hereafter. We were reborn. Our final reading for this part is 115, Essence of Growth.
Page 115, Essence of Growth. Let us never fear needed change. Certainly we have to discriminate between changes for worse and changes for better. But once a need becomes clearly apparent in an individual, in a group, or in AA as a whole, it has long since been found out that we can stand still and look the other way. The essence of all growth is a willingness to change for the better, and then an unremitting unwillingness, then an unremitting willingness to shoulder whatever responsibility this entails. That last one didn't go so well, but that's all right.